Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Fireside Chat, Mustard Hub Voices Behind the Build, where we talk with people building, backing, and running better workplaces. I'm your host, Curtis Forbes. My guest today is Dan Martin, CFE. Dan stumbled into franchising after college. He's a pro now, but then he knew nothing. And after learning from the best, he started his own franchise management firm in 1985 to assist startup franchisors and became a multi-unit owner. He purchased a large territory franchise and ran 18 franchises, and later he would go on to launch the tech company version of his franchise management firm with 10 impressive SaaS modules designed to help franchise organizations grow and make it so they're yelled at less by their franchisees. These SaaS applications and the mentoring strategies bring everything together for both startup and established franchise brands. Also, Dan is an absolute delight. Welcome to the Voices Behind the Build, Dan.
Hey, Curtis, how are you?
I'm great. Before we dive in, I have to know a couple of things. I know you're an avid guitar player, as am I, so I love seeing that in the background.
There you go.
But I love knowing that one of your hobbies is motivational speaking in front of the mirror. Please tell me a little bit more about that.
I'm in. It's amazing how many gigs I have. There's 7 mirrors in my house, and there's a different presentation I'll do for motivation at every mirror. No, I practice in the mirror, and I really don't prepare very much. I just know a lot of stories, and depending on when people are asking about a particular problem or how to get past a certain hump, there's just something that I can dig out of looking in the mirror that
Out of
hopefully people can
curiosity,
answer.
when you're doing it in front of the mirror, how well does the audience receive it?
It's about the same as I get when I do an actual one.
Well, it's always a trip talking to you. So you are one of the experts in franchising. You've basically done it all. So how do you explain what you do to others, especially those in completely different spaces?
Yeah, we just help companies grow, and franchising is a method of distribution to achieve that. So I get calls from people who probably are not necessarily suited to be a franchise, but want to grow and they want to grow and they want to streamline operations and scale. So there's that. I take what we learned in franchising, which is a little more restrictive and regulated, but it certainly has the basis of if a franchisee is successful running a business as a business owner, maybe for the first time, there are all sorts of things that can benefit a startup of a non-franchise type all day long. So we kind of explained that we're mostly involved in franchising, but we also help businesses with streamlining processes and motivational processes and HR processes, and just kind of strategies on how to grow a business that they may never have run a business before, and it's
Yeah.
something that wouldn't be a franchise, but it is something they call us about.
Well, you mentioned that you got started, you stumbled on it, I guess, as you like to say, in college. How did you get started? How did you stumble? I mean, how does one stumble into franchising? Like, what attracted you to the space?
Well, I stumble into everything, and yeah, but I used to drink a lot. But anyway, the when I got out of college, I couldn't get a job. It was Reagan, and it was I was going to school at a place called Santa Barbara, which is 2 hours north up the coast from LA, and just beautiful beaches. And I was used to that for 4 years, which actually says a lot because I actually graduated. And I came back to LA, and I just couldn't take it. There's too many cars and too many people, and I was actually a big fan of the Padres at the time, and I wasn't a Dodger fan, so I kind of took some flack for that. So I ended up moving to San Diego, but I didn't have a job, and I didn't have a place to live, and I didn't know anybody. But there was a show on TV called Simon and Simon, was about two detective brothers that lived supposedly in San Diego. I said that looks like a cool place to live, and I'd seen parts of San Diego before, so I moved down there and down here. Hello, and I just I pulled up to an apartment building. An old man was putting up a sign vacancy. Later found out he puts up maybe every 10 years on a
Hmm.
small little 12-unit bungalow. And I said, I'm looking to rent. He goes, where are you from? LA. Do you have a job? No, I don't. Do you have any money? About 1,300 bucks. Blah blah. So he trusted me, let me in. Was my friend who's in his 80s for 10 years, even after I moved out and bought my own home. Answered an ad in the local paper for an administrative assistant. That was it. No mention of franchising. I went in to interview with a law firm
Hmm.
that specialized in developing franchise companies and turning a company into a franchise company with the legal
Okay.
documentation and the marketing and all that kind of stuff. And the gentleman that owned the company, he said to me, he said, "Do you know anything about franchising?" And I said, I've had several large orders at McDonald's.
I can see you answering that.
Yeah, I did. I thought, being funny in an interview would make me stand out because I had no clue what he was talking about. And the only advantage of me, the only reason I got the gig was because I could type really fast. And back then, computers were brand new. So
Yeah.
I got the job. The man is, his name's Carl Jeffers. He was very well known in franchising in the 80s and 90s. And he was my mentor, and he got me into franchising. And I've everything that I do now, I have to thank him for that. And I started my own company complementary to what the law firm was doing for marketing. I was doing franchise development, and I started my own company in a few years after. So that's
Oh,
how I got
wow.
in, just out of chance.
So digging into your career journey a little bit, you took a lot of steps to get where you are now. So I'd be curious to hear from you. Like, what were these? Maybe what were the milestones that kind of took you down this path? What and why did you make the moves that you did?
Well, it's funny. I would love to write a book about it. I take this interview and drop it into 16 sections or something. And because I get asked that a lot. And to be honest with you, if I made a book out of it, it would be a bestseller, but we'd also be out of business. 'Cause we had no idea. I mean, it was on the forefront of a lot of things. We were developing a technology company that was in the 90s that was using the internet to communicate with franchisees. So we wanted to develop a platform that franchisors and franchisees could use to communicate better with each other. And I was a franchisee, so all we did at the time was faxes and phone calls. We barely had like AOL. And it's just if you send them communication about a new safety policy to your franchisees or a new training agenda or a great new deal on a new product, there was no way of getting it to them. So and confirming it in case they sued for some reason, saying they never got it. So the story is kind of neat because I contacted a DoD firm, a Department of Defense firm in San Diego, just out of the blue, and I said I'm looking at a number of people I know in franchising and blah blah, and I'm thinking about this software thing that would use the internet, where I had a 24 baud modem and enable franchisors to communicate franchisees to communicate better, blah blah. So we split it. They developed it. They brought in their management from Arlington, Virginia, and we took the customization to franchising, and we were first to market, and we just were on fire. And so the advantage, long-winded way of answering your question, is that even to this day, I prefer not to get technical. I think of just crazy, outrageous concepts.
Yeah.
And the coolest thing is that this DoD firm says, "Oh, we can do that," and no one had ever done it. And now I've got ideas. We call it gravity-free thinking. When you get kind of crazy, we've got ideas. We're about to deploy a new system that no one's ever heard of, and that I had trouble describing. And then the problem is that conveying it to the employees, especially developers, is just you've got to do it in bits and pieces. So I know what it can do, and the advantage is the people I work with can actually make it happen, can make it real, and that's just sweet.
I mean, it's remarkable, and now with IFX, Talk to me about the type of companies that you work with. How do you help them? What are the problems that you're obsessed with solving for these companies?
Yeah, that's a great question. They A lot of them are small to medium sized franchise companies that are overwhelmed now that they're supporting franchisees. It was easier when they had 10 company owned stores and everybody did what they were supposed to, but franchisees are independent contractors and can kind of do their own thing if they really wanted to, and or refuse to do things that you tell them. So we found that they were running into problems covering questions from franchisees. They didn't know if they should answer a call from a franchisee at 10 o'clock on a Sunday night. They didn't know certain ways of how to manage franchisees, being very different from managing employees.
Right.
So we'll come in and we'll help them with technology, which is great. But the advantage is that it's not really the technology as much as it is the way that it's applied. So their needs were we're growing. We added 10 new franchises. Now we have to get them open. We have 10 new franchises that are at soft opening that need on-site assistance for hard opening, for grand opening. We need a system in place for how to manage the hot summer months versus how to manage the cold months. There's all sorts of stuff that just was like this, it just grows. So we're kind of a checklist company. We'll take a checklist, we'll develop it. We've got one existing, and we'll help a company manage the growth. And that's our niche. Is really just startup and established companies that are looking for guidance relative to how to run a franchise company. And in this case, what could be conceivably using one of or more of 10 SaaS applications. And then we started getting large clients, Curtis, because we some clients like Dunkin' Donuts, Yum Brands, which is Dunkin', KFC, and Pizza Hut, they signed us up because they had they had grown very very fast, as you can imagine, and then they had franchisees that were all on different POS systems, and they wanted to aggregate all of their royalty processing in North America. So can we as a company integrate with 9 different POS systems here, 2 accounting systems here, different rates for the Central Association in the Midwest, different rates for the West Coast co-op, and each week invoice or ACH automatically out of these franchisees' accounts tons and tons of money to go to the franchisor. And it was not only a challenge to put together, but the word aggregate was the goal, and that made it everything worthwhile. And then it was also giving franchisees a value at the franchisee level for why would I give you my money early? Why would
Yeah.
I give you my money through ACH? Why can't I just continue to write a check? So we gave them
Wow.
instant reports that they could see how they're doing compared to other franchisees. And then the second you say, here's how you're doing compared to other franchisees, some of which are doing better than you. Oh my God, where is it? And we
Yeah.
don't mail it, we don't fax it. You have to go on the internet.
Well, in these decades of guiding franchise growth, how often, and this is just kind of pivoting more into sort of people as a byproduct of this work. I mean, how often have you seen people related challenges stall or even like quietly sabotage an otherwise solid strategy?
Yeah. It, it's in tech, it's and maybe not, you know more than I do about this, but in technology, it's whacked out. It's totally whacked out. I Our company was first marketing franchises, and we had just regular running a business and the usual employee motivation and things like that, HR needs. But in technology, a lot of the times you don't, as the owner, know the specifics of the code.
Yeah.
You can say things, and they can come back and say, "Well, Dan, the way the T3 protocols align with the binary indexing of the Oracle database, the backups on the D3 server couldn't run that smoothly, so it would take too long in terms of latency to make that happen realistically." And I have no idea what I just said.
I'm actually surprised that you just came up with that.
and and that's what they talk like. And so I have to break it into elements. Say what I do, and this is a secret that I normally would not tell, but I'll tell it here because it's such a limited audience. What the heck? I would come up with an idea, which is great, and I would say normally I put on the board and map it out and say, here it is. And everyone in the room, there's a developer, all of which worked for us for 7, 8, 10 years, say, can't be done. Can't be done, boss. That's the attitude. And because well, how come it can't be done? Well, they could say what I just said, and it sounds pretty much like they've thought about it. It sounds like they know what they're talking about. So they said it can't be done. So I learned very quickly to do this. I come in, sit them all down in the conference room, draw it on the whiteboard. Now this we've kind of seen before. We do actually do part of this set on the board, and I'm writing another set. And this set here, I've seen. One of our clients has this. They showed me this the other day. It's not theirs and not ours, but it's kind of a cool thing. I've never seen it before. And our business would be if we could merge those with our system and add a center component between this and this. That would be huge. And they're all in. And they're in because when they see that someone else is, Dan said he saw that somewhere. What? Well, someone else has done this. Oh, yeah, they did this. I saw this at the client's convention. They just did it like this and this, and it looked like that and that. And we just merge it with our system. Really? So someone's done this. So they start taking the notes. I think I can be done. They go out and they're all high and positive. And I never saw that thing from anybody.
Yeah.
I just made it up. But, yeah. So once they hear that someone else has done it, they're all gung ho about doing it.
Yeah. Speaking about franchising specifically, when you see the franchisors, chase fixes in ops or tech or marketing, I'm kind of curious, like, what human dynamic will they most often sort of misdiagnose or ignore? Do you find like a consistent blind spot that you've seen across brands?
That for franchise companies that they ignore?
Yeah, with
Franchisees.
franchisors, oftentimes I think that we see issues in their tech or their marketing, right, operations that are actually really people related issues more so than that other thing. And I'm kind of curious, right? Do you see some consistent blind spots across brands, that often sort of misdiagnose those things?
Yep. I see two things all the time, and this works at every level: franchisee, prospective franchisee, franchisor, employees of franchisor. Two things are one is communication, and the other one is expectations.
Yeah.
And well, I tell you, when you have that first meeting with an employee or a franchisee with an employee, the sales guy is in there in the middle of getting a commission, and he has to set realistic expectations. The employee that works for me or works for any company, you've got to communicate well with them, and you've got to make sure that they understand what the expectations are, and you've got to kind of spoon feed them. You and I've talked about incremental training or incremental advisory or incremental tactics that say this guy's going to only understand this much. It's impressive if we tell him more, but let's just focus him on a milestone that he can achieve his first month of employment or his first month as a franchisee. And let's go back and say, let's find out what his expectations are based on the pitch or the ad that he read or whatever his expectations are, and define that up front. And then come back. I have to come back and continually reinforce it. I have to say, why are you doing this? What is our goal of this project?
Mhm.
What will this do to benefit our clients? Or in franchising, how do you get a franchise candidate qualified? What is the profile we're looking for? And do we stick to that? Because if we don't stick to that, 5 years down the road, this franchisee is going to say, well, the reason I didn't make it in this business was because the sales guy told me this and this and this.
Yeah.
And the expectation has to be documented and communicated. And I've always had it where the franchisee comes in, and no matter how much you say it's hard work, yeah, they buy a franchise and they go, holy smokes, this is a lot harder work than you
Yeah,
said it
they
was going
think it's just the business in a box that they don't have to,
It's a
it
business in a
runs
box.
itself.
Right. So I have a 12-step program, and the 12-step program, which I won't go into, is just a way of saying, Mr. Potential franchise candidate who wants to own a franchise and run it correctly, but doesn't know what they don't know. That's totally cool. That's what I want. That they're buying a franchise. They're going to learn a system. the first thing I need them to do before I give them a big pitch about disclosure and how much money you can make, I need them to go out and analyze within a 30-mile radius of where they want to be or live every what they think is competitor in the area. Who is it? What is it? How many customers have? Get me a copy of their menu, that kind of thing. And it's important, but it's
Yeah.
also that's going to be what they have to do when they become a franchisee. And if they
Right.
can't do it when they're looking to become a franchisee, they're out.
Yeah.
They come back and do it. I give them a reward. It's just increments. If I hit
Yeah.
them with 10 things, oh my God, they can't see the tunnel, let alone the train inside it.
Right. 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 Well,
So
when you roll out your tools, whether it's this, 12 steps or your SaaS tools and your mentoring frameworks, what distinguishes the teams that run with your playbook versus those that sort of fumble with the execution?
that's a great question. Um, One of the things that happens in fumbling is that the expectations of the company when they were started and were seeking out, let's say, financing or a private equity company, had way different expectations than were either realistic or than they told the company they were investing in. And there's also a certain amount of ego involved. And that sometimes the client wants to do this and it's their way or the highway. But we just have clients that they they realize it's much more work as a franchisor than they thought. They realize it's much more legal than they thought. It's something that is for a small company as a franchisor. As a franchisor, your income source is royalties from franchisees. So you sell them a franchise, and you've got 6 months before they open.
Yeah.
And the franchisor may never really, but it's kind of easy to think, well, they'll be open in a couple weeks, right? How tough could it be? And it's 6 months, but then that 6 months is delayed because the franchisee was kind of wishy-washy about sites, and they get the final say. So if they're not, even with skin in the game, if they're not jumping onto the schedule for timing for getting this done, we're not going to get them open. We're not going to get our 6%. Now we're down a year and a half from what we expected to get in terms of cash flow, and now we're in a hole. So it's one of the reasons why businesses, no matter what I say, don't make it is that they don't have the understanding that this is a 3-year turnaround before, as a franchisor, you're going to make any money
Yeah.
because of the amortization.
You you work primarily with leadership, right? In some capacity, right? Leadership of these organizations, and among the most resilient or high performing franchise systems that you've encountered or worked with specifically, what shared cultural or behavioral traits stand out?
Great. Um, we have some great the fastest growing sector of franchising, which is a channel as opposed to an industry. The assisted living sector is huge,
Yeah.
and the assisted living is very rewarding for franchisees who are serving a really good, or offering a very good service, and there's a lot of satisfaction from doing that for them, and that carries through to the franchisor. And the franchisors that are in businesses that help other people in particular, they have regular meetings with the entire company of the franchisor. And franchisees are jumping in as well. And everybody's talking about how this franchisee in New Orleans or this franchisee in Yonkers had run into a situation where a neighborhood was flooded. There's a big fire, and the caregivers were being flown in by the company to not only
Hmm.
help the people that were displaced who weren't even customers of the
Wow.
caregiver, but to help the caregivers whose house was burned down. And everybody communicated every week as a community, and everybody had a say. And it just was it wasn't a top down, do this because I'm the CEO and I want to be on all the videos and do what I say and blah blah. It was the people that opened these conferences where a franchisee that no one knew, was never the one number one, that
Right.
had a story about here's what happened in Yonkers, true story, and everyone in the room was just going, "Holy smokes, what did we buy into here?" I mean, it's not like running a hot dog stand.
Yeah. That's pretty powerful. That's actually that I didn't know that story. I'd probably like to hear a little bit more of that on another time when we connect. You'll have to give me all the details. But I mean, what consistently separates those franchisors then, who follow through on transformation from those who stall after the kickoff call? I mean, you've walked entire organizations through your systems, right? And they've been transformative, but I would imagine there's probably some that don't quite end the way that you would have predicted.
I'll tell you something that's real simple. There's many things, but the one that stands out the most is like happens every single time, goes to the mind of a franchisor every single time, is that especially if you're a new franchisor, is that they follow the plan about qualifying the franchise candidate and going through the hoops and disclosure and all that kind of stuff. And they follow the plan as far as concentric marketing, where they want to build a brand in a certain region. Let's hold on the western region of the United States. Let's build one in the southeastern region and make the
Hmm.
brand recognized in the area. Let's get more franchises there. And when a franchisor awards a franchise, they get a check for 50 or 60 or $75,000.
Yeah.
And the attitude of the franchisor is that, I mean, it needs to be, this is not, you're not going to make any money off of this. This takes care of training, this takes care of legal, this takes care of site selection. It is spent. But their mentality says, I sold 5 franchises this week. That's 5 times $75,000. I'm going to go get a car. I'm going to buy a house.
Yeah.
And they're not thinking franchising, which is, this is losing. That's a losing proposition. 75 grand. That's spent. Half of it could go to 50,000 of it could go to a broker that brought in the lead. And so I've got to train this guy. I've got to get him set up on the system. I got to find a site. Got to get him open. And a month after he opens, he starts paying me 6% of $80,000 a month. And I spent all the money up front. And they have no more resources.
Yeah.
And their attitude kind of is getting a check for 75 grand for a lot of these people who were just a regular yogurt store, 2 or 3 unit operator. 75 grand times 5 is very alluring.
Yeah. So it's a lot of reframing their perception, I think. So now you've built tech that's designed to reduce, operational friction and franchisee frustration. Are there any new or unconventional ways that you've seen companies, not your clients or others, but use software to strengthen the human side of the business?
Yeah, we do because our software, we have clients that are franchisors. They pay us money, but they only pay us money if their franchisees use the software. They really need to use the software to run their business better. But what was interesting, what led them to use the software was the ability to not be alone, to be with other like-minded franchisees in the same brand, and talk to each other and coalesce and compassionate, listening to stories and all that kind of thing. But where we saw this first, which is really really neat, is we had just been in business for about a year when 9/11 happened. So this is way back, and back then we had 9 or 10 clients, and we have a document feature, and we have a pay your royalties feature, and we have a chat. And the chat was used a little bit, but this company called Decorating Day comes in, and I went into their chats, and our CPUs were maxed out. Back then,
Hmm.
we didn't know what to anticipate. And I'm checking the sites, and every site we have, every franchisee is logged in saying, "Are you okay? I understand you're out in Long Island. I understand you're out in New Jersey. I understand your father was in the building." I mean, there was all these conversations about this, bringing together of people to comfort each other and inform each other in our system. And I would go from client to client to client to client to client, and they were all, "Oh, I heard your family, your elderly parents were in the middle of flying from LA to Nashville. and they landed in Fort Worth, and they're elderly, they don't know anybody. And back then, it's payphones, guys. It's not a whole lot of cell phone stuff.
Right, right.
And a franchisee logs into the chat for another decorating dem franchisee, says, "I live there. Give me their number, or tell them to wait by the counter at United. I will be there in a half hour. Pick them up. They can stay with us for as long as they'd like." Now
Wow.
this is on our intranet thing, which was a relatively new concept in franchising, but it was across the board. It was everybody was helping everybody. It was unbelievable. The franchisor just going, "I don't believe it." So what happened then is we engage franchisees with business ideas that are best suited to come from another franchisee. Even though the author is the franchisor and they want to get on a video and say, "I'm the CEO and this is the system and aren't I great? Follow the system." And he's not in the trench. People don't think he's in the trenches. The franchisees say, "Well, he wants his 6%." When they talk to other franchisees, franchisee says, "Well, I tried this and this and this, and I kind of bent the rules here, but I made that work like this." Everyone does it. Everyone does it. Everyone listens. Everyone does it. Another franchisee gets up and here's what I tried. We're used to those chats these days. Go into any chat that you're a member of. But this one was proprietary recipes, which are all secret behind this chat. Payroll, what do I pay my employees, which is all secret and encrypted and trackable, so that the franchisor could take the issues that were coming up and say, let's address these issues as a company for you guys, because you guys are really passionate about this. So franchisees go on to see other franchisees, sales versus their sales. What did you do to get to that? The sense of community that we establish from day one. We don't, again, we say it's not the technology, it's the way that it's applied.
Yeah.
Franchisees don't know what they don't know. They don't have time to learn, W-2 forecast planning for logging into a planetary access point for an intranet. They just need to press a button and see other franchisees, and that's the first thing they see. So franchisees helping franchisees, all we had to do to get this to happen was tell the franchisor, suck it up. Because their ego was, "Oh, we have 200 franchisees. I want to be on a video that says, we've just opened our 5th franchise. We sold 20 franchises in Dubai. And I'm in Louisville, Kentucky as a franchisee." And I'm going, "Well, I'm glad to hear you're succeeding in Dubai, because I'm sucking wind here in Kentucky."
You mentioned something really interesting about tracking tracking these things, and with the data systems in place, you ever find that what companies track doesn't always line up with what actually drives performance on the ground?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. But the way what we do, we never know. Sometimes the client has multiple databases, or they come over from a competitor, and they've got all this information, this disparate information. And I'm just a fan of getting everything. I'll get anything. I'll put it in there and just have it. If I have the data, I can do something with it. But I don't need. What are we trying to accomplish? I want to know what that data set is, and I want to get as broad pictures as I can, as often as I can. But they 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 the auditing data was originally designed, the tracking and stuff like that was because franchisees, it's very high litigation in franchising. Franchisees
Mhm.
sue for all sorts of reasons. And so I built the system when I was a franchisee. I came up with the idea because we were sending memos to my 18 locations saying that the convection oven manufacturer said that if you clean the convection oven a certain way, we baked croissants. So if you clean the convection oven a certain way and it's plugged in, you'll be electrocuted. And so that comes to me, and I've got to get this out to my 18 locations and have some kind of receipt, some kind of reduce my liability here. And we didn't have anything. We have fax or FedEx or something. So then it came to, what if a master franchise, and they have a lot of money and a lot of clout? What if someone sues for a reason that they know isn't real, but they know I didn't document? That we'll settle for that. Okay, they'll get me to settle. And that happens a lot. Probably happens 80% of the time. It's not really there, but the franchisee knows that just to get me out of their face, because they probably didn't write it down, our system writes everything down. It stores everything for the duration of the contract. It gives everything back to the client. A document that was deleted in 1974, maybe a little later than that, is still there. with who accessed it and when and what version it was and who took it down, who put it up, and who
Yeah,
accessed it when, and so on and so forth.
that's smart. I
Every
mean,
franchisee that had long since been terminated or just left, all their communication is there, because franchisees come back
yeah,
5 years after the fact and say, "Oh, by the way, you never gave me this, you never gave me that, send me $5 million." So we built it for that, but that's a tough system. That's a tough angle to say. Oh, by the way, you need to use the internet so that you, if you think about suing, you can pretty much toss that out the window. We don't want to say that. We just want to say we want to know. We want to say we have a report that says you need something and we need to get you this. Did you get it? We know they didn't get. We know they got it. They just didn't open it. So we don't say Big Brother. We say we want to help you use our latest fall marketing program, and we see that you didn't see it yet, but we want to help you. Maybe we can help you with a one-on-one. And the guys called on the carpet. We're not going to say that, but
yeah,
and then we got a record of it. So it's there's three things in franchising and this subject that we're talking about that apply to everything we do: political, practical, and legal. Everything we do. Political, does it make franchisees feel like they're special? Yes. Practical, can franchisees who are not computer literate use it?
hmm
Yes. Legal, is it tracking absolutely everything in case something comes back and bites us, so we have
yeah.
some kind of documentation?
And does it pass the mustard test?
Right.
Um, no pun intended, actually there. But so, curiously, I mean, across your career, then one enduring insight you've gained about people, not processes, not platforms, but just raw human behavior in business,
Uh, the one that I'm not exhibiting very well today,
which is.
which is listening. Uh,
Well, that's because I'm answering. I'm asking all the questions, so I think you're doing pretty good.
and you, who are you?
Yes, exactly. So, all right. Question: looking ahead, right? I'm kind of really curious to sort of reflect a little bit and maybe provoke some future focused thinking. What do tomorrow's franchise leaders? What do they need to understand about people and culture that many of today's leaders just still overlook or at least undervalue?
Franchisor leaders, they're getting better at empathy. They
I
don't
mean,
know empathy
that's a huge leadership trait.
because the franchisee is terrified.
Yeah.
Is a franchisee really an entrepreneur? I don't know. They're they're not inventing a system out of thin air. I mean, I'm not ragging on it. I'm just saying it's a system to follow for a reason. And the system's constantly developing to get better. And it's two or three steps ahead of the franchisees. And man, for 6%, if I'm making more following your system and I'm paying you 6%, I'm making a ton. And I was thinking about going on my own and I would lose all that. Man, I'll give you 6% to keep this. I mean, I'm on a roll
Yeah.
because your point of view is that I'm terrified. I'm probably only going to implement 70% of what you're going to tell me. I'm going to fall asleep in training. I'm going to think this is a lot harder work than the sales guy kind of represented. And the franchisor, they have an agreement that says, well, you need to open now. And you can't
Yeah.
do this. You can't sell the products. You better do this. And the real world is, man, I forgot it all. I was nervous. So we took all our 401k. It's my first location. I've never been in retail before. We need to understand that. If the franchisor doesn't have that, there's no
Yeah.
point, no matter what it is. Senior
So
care, doesn't matter.
as these systems, as these franchise systems, all right, as the franchisor, as they evolve and get more deliberate about supporting, their people or the franchisees, how does that change the way you shape your own work and tools?
Yeah, we actually have a courses for the franchisor before we let them loose on our system.
Really?
And what happened in the early days? What happened was people would come to San Diego for training. We do hands-on training, long before there was a whole lot of Zoom stuff. And this is in the '90s and early 2000s. And what would happen was we explain a feature of the software, and then they would say, "Well, how is that used in franchising?" And well, if you're a franchise, you have this, this, and this: the ad fund, the tech fee, the royalty, and the whatever. Oh yeah, can you have a royalty like that? Can you have a graduated royalty? So we started talking about the technology does this royalty thing, And then now they're given an opening for well, do people ever raise that fee? So it's half was strategies and half was the software. So then started taking up of 2-day training. Strategies started taking up a day of it. So we produced a CD series that the client had to watch before coming to San Diego. So
How often did they actually follow through and watch that before they showed up?
they had to watch it because I would grill the hell out of them.
Okay. Okay.
Because quite honest with you, I'm sitting there doing training, our people are doing training, and we're repeating ourselves.
Yeah.
It's not productive. It's training, but it's advanced training on their side is what it is. But the advantage is that we trained the franchisor first on how to you not recognize that email often comes off in an unintended manner. We all know that.
Oh yeah.
Chats, a chat goes on, and some franchisees going to go, I know we're talking about productive products and margins, but this franchise sucks, and I'll tell you why it sucks, because the logo is red, I know, but it's not the right red. And I know it's a chain that's been here 20 years, but the reason my sales suck is because the damn logo is not the right red. And every franchisee in the chat is going, get rid of this guy. It's just a pain. So we teach franchisors how to deal with this guy. We have a delete button. We have a oust button. We have electrocute his mouse button, all this kind of stuff. And he can't come in anymore. And to be honest with you, you can hear a silent applause from every other franchisee saying, get rid of this guy. He's bringing us down. So we teach. So that's before we release to franchisees. And then within the franchisor has an understanding of what. Always, can we show them everything IFX did? Let's show them all the modules. And I'm saying, no, you go like this. It won't work. So then we teach the franchisee as well. What are their expectations? I don't want them playing games in the system. I need to get in, get the information, get the royalty report, get out, go meet people, run the business. So there's that. That probably became the biggest asset we offer compared to our competitor who's out of overseas, who really doesn't focus on franchise humanness. They just say, read the manual.
Yeah.
And they'll even say, if a person calls up and says, well, I want to do this. I know I've been told how to do it before, and I was going to do it like this. I was looking to drag and drop it, and I wasn't sure exactly. And the franchise tech guy at the competitor says, quite honestly, well, I'm sorry, ma'am, but you're not technical enough to call technical support.
That's not sure how I would react to that. So I have one more question. I love this scenario. So you're on a plane, you just landed, you're sitting next to founder, maybe a CEO of a large organization, and he asks you how to get the people and the culture right from day one. You guys are exiting the plane, he grabs his bags, and you have an opportunity. What's the single piece of advice you wouldn't, let him leave without? And he's about to walk down the jetway. So what do you leave him with?
I lead by example.
I love that. I think those are good, powerful words.
Good.
It's succinct. I mean, but it means a lot.
Oh, but that's demeaning. No, man, if you're emptying the trash with a franchisee that's in training emptying trash, you can walk the walk and you can talk the talk. The issue is I'm going to make these residuals based on the franchise. The franchisee is sitting in front of me. Each one I had is a residual, but they're real people. And if they don't see the CEO or the CFO or the COO at the level that they can understand, not only helping them, but the franchisee, but really painting a picture of, holy smokes,
Yeah.
this he's walking the walk. That I buy into that. I don't buy into people that PC or VC companies or PE companies that think, well, we hope they work out.
Yeah.
It's a very, because of the empathy, I just think it's important to take a couple that's never been in business, giving all their life savings to be a franchisee in whatever business, and the franchisor CEO says, I wanted to just call you and talk to you about how you're doing, what I can do. And would you mind if I came by your store and helped you just talk about where we're going, and
Love
I'll even
that.
help you sweep the floor.
Love that. Love that. Well, thank you so much, Dan. I feel like every time I get to chat with you is my favorite time, is my next favorite conversation. And thank you all for tuning in to Mustard Hub Voices Behind the Build. If you got something out of this conversation, share it with a friend or teammate. Check out mustardhub.com to see how we help companies become destinations for workplace happiness and turn culture into a competitive edge. Until next time, thank you.